My wife called me her beta version while hunting for a richer upgrade, but when I found her profiles on 3 dating apps and her plan to take $125K from me, I exposed everything in front of our friends on a 65-inch TV, and they never saw it coming. I'm 34 years old. I'm a mechanical engineer, and I make pretty good money, enough that my wife Sophia hasn't had to work for the last 3 years. And honestly, I never minded supporting her because I thought we were building something together, a future, a life. We'd been married for 5 years when everything exploded, and looking back, I should have seen it coming. But I guess when you really trust someone, you're not going around looking for signs that they're betraying you. You know what I mean? It all started one Friday night about 8 months ago. I had come home early from work because they canceled a last-minute meeting, and when I walked into the house, I heard Sophia and her friends in the living room, laughing and talking loud, like girls' night with wine, nothing out of the ordinary. I was going to go straight upstairs to change, but then I heard my name and, well, you know how it is. You automatically stop when someone's talking about you. I stood there in a hallway near the kitchen where they couldn't see me, and what I heard basically broke me in half. Patricia, Sophia's best friend, was saying something like, "So when you finally do it, you'll be able to get someone who's really at your level." And Sophia laughed. I mean, she really laughed, and said, "I know, Benjamin is a good guy, but honestly, I could do so much better. He's like my beta version while I find the final version." The others laughed too, and someone else, I think it was Hannah, said, "Well, at least he keeps you comfortable in the meantime." And they all laughed again like it was the funniest joke in the world. I stood there with my jacket still on, feeling like someone had hit me in the stomach with a baseball bat. Like, this is what she thinks of me? I'm just a temporary plan while she looks for something better? I went upstairs quietly, locked myself in the bedroom, and just sat on the bed trying to process what I'd just heard. Part of me wanted to go downstairs and confront her right there in front of all her friends. But another part, the more rational part, I guess, told me to wait, to think things through, before acting. When I finally went downstairs like an hour later, acting like nothing happened, Sophia was all smiles and affectionate, gave me a kiss, and asked me how my day was. I looked at her and thought, who are you really? Because the woman in front of me acting like the perfect wife didn't seem to be the same one who an hour ago was planning her upgrade with her friends. That night in bed, while she slept next to me, I was awake staring at the ceiling, thinking about what to do with this information. The next day I confronted her, but casually, like, "Hey, I heard something you guys were talking about yesterday, the upgrade thing and all that. What's up with that?" Sophia barely looked up from her phone and told me, "Oh, Benjamin, it was just girl talk. Don't be dramatic. Girls always talk like that. It doesn't mean anything." She patted my arm like I was a kid worrying about silly things and changed the subject. But I really knew it wasn't just girl talk. There was something more in the way she said it, in the tone, in the laughter. The following weeks, I started noticing things I hadn't seen before, or that maybe I did see but ignored. Sophia had become super protective of her phone, like she'd take it even to the bathroom, and if I walked into the room when she was on her cell, she'd immediately flip it over or lock it. She started going out more often, supposedly with friends, to the gym, for coffee, to some new yoga class she'd discovered. She always had a perfectly reasonable excuse, but there was something about the frequency, how often it was, that didn't add up. One Tuesday night, I was at the bar with Connor, my best friend since college, having some beers after work, and he got kind of weird, like nervous, and finally told me, "Look, brother, I don't know if I should tell you this, but I saw Sophia last Saturday at that expensive Italian restaurant downtown. You know which one? The one with valet parking and everything, and she was with a guy." I tried to act casual and asked him, "So?" Maybe it was her cousin or a friend, but Connor shook his head and said, "No, man, I know what a date looks like." And that was a date. They were sitting on the same side of the booth. She was all dressed up, touching his arm, laughing at everything he said. I felt like someone had thrown ice water on me. I told him thanks for telling me and went home early. Sophia was on the couch watching Netflix when I arrived, and I asked her what she'd done on Saturday. She told me, without even turning to look at me, that she'd gone shopping with Patricia and then they'd grabbed a quick dinner. Direct lie to my face. At that moment, I knew I needed real proof, not just suspicions and comments. I needed something concrete, because if I was going to confront her or make any decision, I had to be completely sure of what was happening. My opportunity came like 2 weeks later. Sophia had her yoga class, the one that supposedly lasted 2 hours. Spoiler alert, yoga classes don't last 2 hours, and she'd left with her phone but had left her laptop on the kitchen table. Normally, I'm not one of those people who checks their partner's stuff. Like, I always believed in privacy and trust, but after everything that had happened, I didn't feel bad about doing it. I opened the laptop. Thank God it didn't have a password, because we used the same computer to watch movies and stuff, and I started looking. The first thing I found was her email, and there they were, emails from dating sites, Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, like 3 different apps. She had active profiles on all of them, with recent photos. Photos I had taken of her on our vacation last year, using my money, my vacation days, to then use them on dating apps looking for my replacement. Her profile description said something like, looking for someone ambitious and established. I like men who know what they want and can provide a comfortable lifestyle. I mean, she was literally looking for someone with more money than me, someone who could support her better than I did. But wait, because it gets worse. I started checking her messages, and she had conversations with like 10 different guys. Some were pretty innocent, like, hi, how are you? But with others, she was being super flirty. Sending photos, thank God not nudes but provocative photos, making plans to meet up. With one in particular, a guy named something like Richard or Robert. I don't remember well. The messages were pretty advanced, talking about where they could go on trips together, how he'd just closed a big deal and had a lot of money to spend, all that kind of stuff. And here comes what really destroyed me. In her documents folder, I found a file called New Life Planning, or something like that. I opened it, and it was basically her exit strategy. She had a list of things she needed, secure in the divorce, how much she thought she could get from me in asset division. We'd bought the house 2 years ago, and she literally hadn't put in a single dollar but assumed she'd get half. She even had a list of characteristics her next husband should have, like a checklist. Minimum income of $250K a year. I was making like $180K at the time. Must have his own house. Must be willing to let me manage household finances. Basically, she was looking for someone to be her personal ATM with benefits. I took screenshots of everything. The profiles, the messages, the planning document, everything. I sent them to my personal email and then closed the laptop like nothing had happened. When Sophia came back from her supposed yoga class, all sweaty and in her $150 leggings that I had bought her, ironic, right? She acted completely normal, gave me a kiss, and asked if I wanted to order Chinese food. During the following days, I didn't say anything, but I started moving my pieces. First, I found the best divorce lawyer in the city, a guy named Mitchell, who had a reputation for being ruthless, and I told him the whole situation. Mitchell reviewed everything, the screenshots, the planning document, and told me I had a solid case, that the infidelity and the fact that she was actively planning to divorce to get money played in my favor. He advised me to start preparing things financially, to open a separate bank account, and to start moving my money little by little to protect my assets. I did exactly that. I opened a new account at a different bank and started transferring my salary there. I canceled the additional credit cards Sophia had and left her with only one with a low limit. She noticed the change after like a week, when she tried to buy something expensive and the card was declined. She confronted me, like all indignant, saying, "What's up with the cards?" And I simply told her, "Oh, I'm making some financial adjustments, don't worry." I could see she was upset, but she couldn't say anything without revealing how much she depended on my money. I also stopped doing all the extra things I normally did. I was the one who fixed everything in the house, who made sure the car was in good condition, who planned our outings. Basically, the one who kept our whole life running while she was out there looking for my replacement. I stopped doing it all. If something broke, I didn't fix it. If she wanted to go somewhere, let her plan it. I started acting like the roommate she clearly thought I was. Sophia started getting frustrated, asking me why I was being so distant, why we didn't spend time together like before. The irony killed me. Like, you're the one on dating apps looking for your next sugar daddy, but I'm the distant one. I'd tell her I was stressed with work, that I had a lot on my mind, and she'd accept it because, honestly, I think she didn't care that much as long as she still had access to my money in the house. Then, like a month after I discovered everything, Sophia surprises me saying she wants us to go to a couples weekend at a lake house that one of our friends had rented. Hannah and her husband Natalie were going, Wesley and Vincent, Donald and his girlfriend, basically the group we always hung out with. I asked her who else was going, and when she mentioned that Patricia would also be there with her boyfriend, I almost laughed in her face. Patricia, the same one who'd been encouraging her to look for her upgrade, was going to be there. Mitchell, my lawyer, already had the divorce papers ready. They were signed, sealed, only needed to be officially served. When Sophia invited me to the lake weekend, something in my head clicked. This was my opportunity. I told her yes, that it seemed like a good idea, that we needed to reconnect. She got excited, probably thinking her plan was working, that she had me exactly where she wanted me, not knowing I also had a plan. I packed for the weekend, and among my clothes I put my laptop and a printed copy of all the screenshots I'd taken, the dating app profiles, the messages, the planning document, everything. I also put the divorce papers in my briefcase. Friday afternoon, we drove the 2 hours to the lake house. Sophia was in the passenger seat, all happy, talking about how fun the weekend was going to be, taking selfies for Instagram. I just nodded and kept driving, thinking about what was going to happen the next day. The house was nice, like a big cabin with a lake view, private dock, living room with fireplace, and a huge TV. We arrived first and helped set everything up for when the others arrived. That night, we all had dinner together, drank wine, played board games, acted like the perfect couples we supposedly were. Sophia was in her element, being the charming hostess, laughing at everyone's jokes, and the whole time I just thought, enjoy it while you can, because tomorrow everything changes. Saturday morning, I got up early and connected my laptop to the living room TV. Set everything up so that with just pressing a button on my phone, the images would appear on the screen. I hid the laptop behind the couch where no one would see it. We all had breakfast together, like a big brunch with pancakes and mimosas, and then some went for a walk by the lake, others stayed in the living room chatting. I waited until everyone was gathered in the living room again, like around 3 inches the afternoon. Then I stood up, turned off the music that was playing, and said, "Hey guys, sorry to interrupt, but there's something I need to share with all of you." Sophia turned to look at me confused, like with a puzzled smile on her face, and I took out my phone. I pressed the button, and on the 65-inch TV appeared Sophia's Tinder profile, with all her photos, her description looking for someone ambitious and established, everything there on the giant screen for everyone to see. The silence that followed was probably the most awkward of my life. Sophia froze with her wine glass in her hand, Patricia went pale, and everyone else just looked between the screen and us not knowing what to do. I switched to the next image, which was messages from her with one of the guys, talking about how she couldn't wait to get divorced and start her new life. Then I showed the planning document. Zoomed in on the part where it said I was basically a placeholder while she found something better. Sophia finally reacted, stood up and started yelling about how dare I, that I had invaded her privacy, that this was emotional manipulation in front of our friends. I told her, "Relax, I'm not done yet." I took out the divorce papers from my briefcase, put them on the coffee table in front of her and said, "This is official. They're already signed by me and my lawyer. They just need your signature. I'm giving you exactly what you wanted, your freedom to look for your next sponsor, so you should be grateful." Hannah started crying, I think from the awkwardness of the whole situation. Wesley tried to mediate, saying, maybe we should talk about this in private, but I shook my head. I said, "No, she's been planning this in private for months, talking about it with her friends." He looked directly at Patricia when I said this, actively looking for my replacement while I paid all her bills, her clothes, her food, everything. If she could plan my humiliation in private, I can execute my response in public. Sophia tried another angle, started with how it was all a misunderstanding, that the profiles were old, that they didn't mean anything. But I just laughed and said, "They're from 2 weeks ago. The dates are right there in the screenshots. Don't take me for an idiot." Patricia tried to defend Sophia, saying all married women got curious, and that didn't mean actual infidelity. And I responded, "Oh, interesting. So your boyfriend who's sitting here," he pointed at the guy next to her looking super uncomfortable, "will be fine with you also having active profiles on dating apps, right?" She shut up immediately. I grabbed my suitcase that I'd already packed in the morning without anyone noticing, told Sophia that the lawyer would contact her on Monday to finalize the details, and I left. I left everyone there in the living room, in complete silence, with Sophia crying on the couch and the others not knowing where to hide. I drove the 2 hours back home with a mix of emotions, like relieved that everything was finally out, but also sad because I'd basically just dynamited 5 years of my life in front of 8 people. The days after were chaos. Several of the friends who were there that weekend sent me messages, some supporting me, others saying that although they understood my anger, the way I did it had been too much. Hannah specifically sent me a long message, apologizing for not having seen the signs before, and confessing that Patricia had told her months ago that Sophia was unhappy in the marriage, but she thought it was just a phase. Wesley and Vincent distanced themselves completely, like they didn't want to get into the drama. Donald sent me a short message saying, "Brother, that was heavy, but I understand why you did it." Sophia tried to contact me like 50 times that first week. Messages, calls, emails, alternating between pleas to talk and furious attacks that I was a vengeful psychopath. Mitchell, my lawyer, told me not to respond to anything, that all communication had to be through him. Eventually, she hired her own lawyer, one who wasn't as good as Mitchell because I guess she didn't have as much money to pay for a better one. Ironic, considering she was looking for precisely someone with more money. Sophia's family found out about everything too, because apparently Patricia couldn't keep her mouth shut and told Sophia's sister, who told her mom. And basically within 2 weeks, her whole family knew she'd been on dating apps while married. Her father, who I'd always liked, called me to apologize and tell me he was disappointed in his daughter, that he hadn't raised her to be like that. Her mother, on the other hand, tried to defend Sophia, saying marriages were complicated and that I'd probably done things wrong too, even though she never specified what. The divorce process took like 4 months because Sophia tried to fight for more money, arguing that she had sacrificed her career to support mine. She'd worked in retail for 2 years after we got married, and then quit because supposedly it stressed her out too much. But Mitchell proved that the evidence of infidelity and premeditated planning worked against her position. In the end, she kept her car, some furniture, and a small settlement payment, much less than what she'd planned in her new life document. And the house stayed with me because I'd paid the full down payment and the mortgage payments. She technically hadn't contributed anything. Patricia and Sophia had a falling out too. I guess because Patricia was tired of being associated with all the drama. I heard through the grapevine that Sophia moved to her cousin Emma's apartment in another city, working at some store or another while still looking for her upgrade on the apps. Part of me felt sorry for her, like she dedicated so much time and energy looking for something better that she lost what she had, but most of me just felt relief that she wasn't my problem anymore. Like 2 months ago, I met someone at the gym, a woman who works in architecture, has her own established life, doesn't need anyone to support her. We've gone out a couple of times, nothing serious yet, but it's refreshing to be with someone who sees you as a person and not as a means to an end. I'm still processing everything that happened, the betrayal, the wasted time, the way it all ended. Sometimes I wonder if I handled everything right, if I should have done things differently. But at the end of the day, I think Sophia showed me who she really was, and I acted accordingly. I don't regret making it public, because if she could plan my humiliation in private for months, I had the right to respond in the way I deemed necessary. And well, here I am, 34 years old, single again, with an empty house, but at least with my dignity intact.